So even though, you know, you're not sober, this song is like really powerful to me. It's called Breakfast in Bottles. Breakfast from Bottles.
That one is definitely more.
This one, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I know, you know, I'm the one who's sober in the car, but it's got to be something. I don't know what it's like in Brazil, like, you know, alcoholism and substance abuse. Is it something that's openly talked about or not? Really?
I think it's kind of the same as here. Yeah, there's this problem is probably universal, like addiction, substance use. But I'm curious to know, like, how, like, who is the person talking? Is it like your higher self? Is it more like a god? Like what?
So for me, like in that song, what happened was someone reached out to me for help that I had known, and they had slipped. They had a really bad relapse, and like really badly. They actually, I talked to them and helped them, and they, you know, they went to the hospital. And what it is, it's like it brought me back to that point when I first got sober 5.5 years ago, and I was so desperate. I felt so ashamed and so afraid to ask for help. And I realized, like, it takes so much courage because you've already kind of, you've sort of lost the will to live in a way, you know, at that point. And when I spoke to her, you know, she kept thinking she wasn't worthy of being saved, you know. And when I was in her position, I was exactly the same way. No job, no money, no health insurance. And what happened was, you know, I started to, you know, want to get help. And I asked a friend who I knew worked in the treatment industry, you know, if he knew of like some places. And I started doing intakes. And he ended up helping me get a full scholarship to go to rehab, paid for by the Music Cares Foundation, which is an incredible nonprofit part of the Grammys. And at that time, I just thought, oh my God, like this person is like such an amazing, incredible savior. And here I am 5.5 years later on the opposite end of that relationship, being able to help someone else. And so this young woman, when she flies back to LA, she ended up having to get surgery and everything. I'm going to pick her up from the airport. I was able to find her a year-long women's treatment program and get her fully scholarshiped. You know, because there's resources. And since I've gotten sober, I actually worked in the treatment industry too. So it was like coming back from a place where you just lost the will to live, barely have the courage to ask for help, and to think that 5 years later, I'm going to be where I am now, you know, and doing what I'm doing with the music. And like, it's just a miracle. It's an incredible journey. And it's one where it's like, you end up, I think for me, like you end up giving back and being of service without even really like realizing it once you're in that place where you're doing it, because the growth that I've had and the healing has happened gradually over time. And I didn't even realize, like, you know, how far I've come sometimes. And when that happened, this was over the holiday, I was like, holy crap, you know? And so I wanted that song to come from a voice of being like, I hear you, I see you, I've been you, and I'm here for you when you need me, you know? Because there should be no judgment and no shame when you're in that place, because it's so, you're humiliated that how did you get here? You know what I mean? And a lot of times what people don't realize too is like, I was a really highly functioning alcoholic for the most degree. I held down a job. I looked great. Like, you know what I mean? No one was like wondering if there's anything wrong. I was even offered to direct someone's company. Like, you know, there are people suffering with addiction that you wouldn't even know, you know? And another part of me too, like being an adoptee, is that we present really well. We've learned, you know, that we have to be chameleons and that we don't want to like, you know, cause people extra work or anything. So we learn to be really, just really self-sufficient and not bothering people and being able to carry on our own, even if we're suffering silently inside. You know, we've learned to put our needs second. And it's something other alcoholics do too. So it's like, I think it's important for people to see that people suffering from substance abuse don't always look like the homeless hobo. You know what I mean? Like,
mothers that can
but that song just brought me back to like where I was in that place, and now realizing, you know, to create that safe space for someone else who wants to get help. You know.
And first of all, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's like, you're strong, you're a warrior. And second of all, it must be super satisfying too for you to be in a position to help her, because you're helping her, but in a way it's like you're helping her like you're helping yourself.
I think it's a part of the healing process.
Like
you know,
full circle
it's
moment.
a full circle moment. Like that's a spiritual moment when you're like, wow, like how I would never have thought 5.5 years ago when I was her that I would be able to help someone. You know, like it's just, it's kind of, that's where it's like alcoholism and substance abuse is like, my face is your face. It could be your daughter, it could be your sister, it could be your mother, you know, and it's just a matter of like circumstance sometimes, you know what I mean? And I think the stigma around it, you know, LA in particular, people are really open about recovery and stuff, but I think I've noticed that a lot of the people that are more in like the white collar professional, there's less people that are willing to be open about their recovery, you know? And that's where I was like, because I know a lot of people in the recovery community that you would never, most people, you know, I think what they connect to what someone in recovery is, and I don't know, it's just people still have a ways to go. That's why I was curious what it was like in Brazil, you know, because back when I lived in Boston, my Brazilian friends and I worked in hospitality. Like I bartended for a very long time, and I did it out here too. And I was surrounded in a community where like drinking heavily was just a part of the culture. And my Brazilian friends, particularly my one friend Michelini, I love her to death, but she always got so crazy drunk, and she's Brazilian. You know, it's sort of one of my Filipino friends out here too, you know, and it's like certain cultures don't talk, like I know the Asian community is pretty quiet about it, you know, they keep everything in-house, they don't talk about it. So the recovery community is predominantly white, first of all. I don't know if people realize that, but and so when you do see other people of color in it, you realize it took a lot to get here, because you're coming from communities that don't talk openly about this, and it's really, really shunned and shamed.
Yeah,
you know,
it's kind of twisted in Brazil, because at the same time that like partying, heavy partying, it's a part of the culture. Like every Sunday, we have beer and
football.
And,
you know,
and soccer.
You had that drink that I liked with the sugar cane. Or it has like a sugar cube or something in it, like Libra Cubra. No, Caipirinha. Yeah.
So the culture is heavy about it, but I would say there's a stigma. Yeah, there's a stigma. Just like here, and I don't know if it's
because I think people feel like it's a reflection of your family and the parenting and all that.
And like values, but like I don't.
But the thing is with addiction is that it's literally like a chemical imbalance in your brain. So like when I have a drink and I keep drinking, instead of feeling buzzed, the receptors that send those endorphins aren't sending as much of the endorphins to my brain to make me feel like I'm feeling buzzed, so I need to drink more. It's damaged, you know. So where a regular person who doesn't have that addictive, you know, gene in them will feel the effects of the alcohol and be like, oh wow, I'm feeling really like drunk, I've had enough. And so their receptors are, you know, firing off and making them feel the way you normally would. You know, and so that's something that, I mean, it's a scientific thing. And
it's like another disorder. Like
so it's not a choice if you're not educated on understanding that you have an addiction, and that it's a genetic predisposition, you know. So it's just interesting, you know, to hear in different cultures, because it's something that overarches everybody. It affects everyone. It doesn't matter if you live in the Hollywood Hills or you're homeless on Skid Row. Addiction just levels everything. So